Upstanding citizens. So we'll just try and keep this brief before we get to the project at hand here. This is an experiment video. I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but one of the things that I've had trouble with, and one of the things that a friend of mine, John, has, I've mentioned him before. He had the same issue when he had his inline six in his car. The idle quality is really crappy with the Sniper 2300 on a 200 cubic inch engine. And I think the reason for that is that the injectors, the stock injectors that the 2300 comes with, are 100 pound per hour. Now, 100 pound per hour injectors, that's all good and fine. It's a good kind of medium, it'll account for the lower and higher, smaller cubic inch and larger cubic inch engines that a two barrel might be on. That being said, the 200's on the very bottom end of that. And the issue is that when it's idling, you're running the injectors, at least I'm noticing it, even at a 13.2 AFR, which seems to be what my engine will idle smoothly at. It is running the injectors down about 1.6, 1.5 millisecond duty cycle or pulse width. That's all these things are rated for. They won't go any lower than that. You can't open them any less than a millisecond and a half, 1.5 milliseconds. So the injectors, I think, are just quite simply too large. So we found these, John actually found them online, the Siemens Deca fuel injectors. These are the EV6s. This is an 80 pound per hour injector. I wish they had a 60. A 60 would be a little bit better size, I think, but that's okay. We'll make these work. The difference is that the smaller injector, this is 80 pound per hour at 43 psi, which means at 60 psi it's going to flow about 89 pounds per hour. That's a 22 pound per hour decrease overall because there's two injectors. That won't hurt the performance at all. The 200 pound per hour injectors are actually too large anyways. This is certainly still going to be large enough to support the whole power range, but the duty cycle is going to be longer. The pulse width is going to be longer because these injectors are a little bit smaller. I think that might improve the idle quality. So, as soon as they get in, we're going to pop them in, and it's just going to be a little experiment video. So now on this real quick about the pressure, I was just rerunning the numbers to make sure I had it right, and I may be off a little bit here. These are 43.5 psi, 80 pounds at 43.5. So if we use a calculator, 43.5 is the original pressure. The new pressure is 60. That's what the system operates at. And if we calculate, this says it's going to be 93.95, so 94. So that's a little bit higher than I thought it was going to be. I thought I had run the numbers before and I saw 89, but I might have had the pressures off. This is still better. It's just not the improvement, not quite the improvement that I had wanted. We're talking about 12 pounds per hour difference. That's not a lot, and I don't know that that's going to make the very big difference, but it might. I suspect it is going to help the idle quality in some fashion. So we see this is 93.95. We might as well call it 94. We're going to go over here. This is the software. Okay. And right now it's at 100 pounds per hour at 60. Now, I think what you could do, you could probably put injector rated pressure in here at 43.5 and probably set this for 80, but I think I'm just going to leave it at 60 and I'm just going to make this 94. So that should reduce it to 188, and it does. So that's all you should have to do. You don't need to do anything else. And then, of course, you save this tune as another version, and we're going to try and run it. The injector should be here today. Okay, so now I went through and checked this again because I remembered the pressure being lower when John and I ran the numbers. So I found the actual data sheet for this specific model number of injector. They call out the fuel pressures being 350 kPa, which Magic Google says is, and if you multiplied 14.7 times 3.5, you'd end up in the same place. It's 50.76. So that's these flow 82 pounds per hour at 50.76. So if we go into the calculator here, flow, and they are rated at 82. The actual is 50.76. Okay. The actual pressure is going to be 60 out of my system. That's 89. So I'm pretty confident in the 89 number. So we're going to actually, and I've already put it in here. Let's open it up again. Okay, EFI parameters. I am going to set this at 89. Pretty confident in that 89 number now. The flow that they rated on the eBay website, which they're genuine injectors, by the way. I mean, they say Schlager on them, which is who makes the actual Deca injectors. So they're either really good forgeries or they're real. So I don't know. This is just a test anyways. So we're going to be at 89 at 60, which gives us a total of 178. That's a little bit better. So we'll try it there. We'll see if it works. If this doesn't actually match, what we're going to end up seeing is the VE table, and the learn table is going to shift a larger percentage because it's not going to be delivering on what the fixed parameters are. So if they're supplying more fuel, the VE table is going to take some out. If it's not supplying enough fuel, the VE table is going to boost it up. So it doesn't really matter. This needs to be close. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just going to affect how much the tune shifts. That's all that's going to happen. The learn data is going to shift more or less depending on how close it is or not. All right, we got the 80s. Let's put them in. These are, in fact, Schlagers, which they make them for Siemens Deca. They look like the real deal to me, and if they're forgeries, they're pretty damn good ones. Don't really care. I really more care that they're the right spec. They're purple, which they should be. That identifies them. So it's real easy. You guys have seen me do these before on another video. I have it where I put the zip ties. That's what these are. These zip ties are for here. I put them on the connectors. I will be putting them on there. Just it ensures that these don't come unplugged. They're not the best locking injector connector. So you just take the two screws out. I'm going to get the air filter out of the way here. I won't show it all, but two screws out. Just pop that cover off of there. It's got the injectors in it. Swap those guys in. Oh, I guess I'll just show where we are again. So I just took those two screws out. These are the two that I'm talking about right here. And you just pop this off. In my case, one of them stayed in the fuel rail. Right here, this is the fuel rail. And one of them stayed in the throttle body. It doesn't really matter. I just popped them both in there just to show where they kind of sit. You can see my zip ties that I've got on here. They're still holding the connectors down nice and tight, so that's good. Yep, they haven't moved at all. So I'll just clip those off and swap them. All right, the injectors are in. So the first thing that we're going to do is let it prime and see if they click and see if we have any leaks. And then I've also got to load the new program into it. So here, the fuel pump. I just heard a click out of the injectors. Let's load the new program. Global. Upload to ECU. Okay. And let's go inspect for fuel leaks before we try this again. I don't see anything. Nothing obvious. No big fuel leaks. So I think that we're probably ready. All right. It appears there are no leaks. So let's try it. See if it runs or not. It's extremely rich. But that's... part of that might be, no, it's running pretty rich, it looks like. Let's see. Let's see. We're going to come out of it. It's pretty rich, but it's cold. You know, we're just not going to know. It's in closed loop, though, so that's good. Let's see what the closed loop comp is. Yeah, look at that. 28% it's taking out. So it's almost like these injectors are too big. But the pulse width, that's a lot higher than I would expect. So, well, let's let it warm up and see. So I actually had to take some time to analyze what was going on there for a minute. And I've driven it since, and this is actually the learn data that came out of it. I sat there and kind of screwed around with different tunes for a little bit. And at idle, I was noticing if I put the 100 pound per hour setting file in there, tune that was set for 100 pounds per hour, the numbers all in the idle area, which is primarily what this is right here, would even out. But I switched back to the tune where I set it for 89 pounds an hour. And this is what we got when we drove it. And so what this tells me is, and it's really very interesting that we're seeing this, it's cutting a lot of fuel back, which means that at the same pulse width that we were at with the 100 pound per hour injectors, these injectors are putting out more fuel. So it's cutting out 20%, as you can see. But as we roll up here, the scaling was working because we're like -2%, -4%. So in general, the scaling's kind of working. It's probably adding a little bit more fuel, or the new injectors are using a little bit more fuel than the calculation, which is okay. I expect to see these kinds of numbers in this area here. This is a good wide open pull right here because low map, right? Didn't get any cruising in here. You can see there's nothing's changed here because it's just a bad time of day to try and do it. But this whole area here is where we're seeing a lot of it. And you see it kind of evens out as you get down this way. You know, you get down to 7%. So we know that as the injector duty cycle increases, the pulse width increases, it's more accurate. This is fine. We're going to let this learn. We're going to let it learn. We're going to transfer. I already transferred this to the base table. I'm going to drive it this weekend to Malibu's Cars and Coffee with these injectors in it, and we're going to let it learn. And I'll probably bring my computer with me there and transfer the learn. And we're just going to keep doing that. It's not far enough off to have to rebaseline the VE table. This is okay. So, am I seeing much of a difference? The idle quality, about the same, maybe a little bit better. It's hard to say. So, not really an upgrade. However, these are name brand injectors. They're good quality. The standard sniper injectors do have a tendency to fail. So I'm going to leave them in there. I'm going to drive it a little bit. Now, it does seem after I transferred the learn, which is going to make it a little bit more stable at idle because it's not relying on closed loop compensation. I did notice after I transferred this, it seems like the idle's a little bit better. I think the idle is more stable. It's less stumbly than it was. It's probably something that's just always going to kind of suffer from, but it's definitely a little bit better. So, you know, that's just a quick injector upgrade. If there's any more on this, I'll probably do an update. But I'm probably going to call this one here. If anything changes this weekend, if I haven't released this video yet, I'll tack it on. All right, so there wasn't really much to video while I was driving, but here's what I can tell you. These injectors are far quieter. Another issue that I noticed that John had also noticed with his car, and roughly the same build, right? Underneath this is what tipped me off to it. Underneath the air cleaner nut, I started noticing fuel. It was wet. And at idle, I noticed spray kind of coming up towards the lid of the air cleaner. And I said, that's not right. And I asked John, he said his did the exact same thing. And we kind of attributed it to low duty cycle of the or very short pulse width of the injectors. The little burst of pressure makes it pop up as it's just barely popping the injector open. I mean, it is a very minimum. This engine idle is the very minimum that you can run those injectors. it's not doing that anymore. I'm not seeing fuel spray, and it's just so much quieter. The injectors are, you can't even hear them now with the real decas in there. So that's a positive. So how do I rate this upgrade overall? It didn't really do exactly what I wanted it to. I think it does idle very marginally better. Well, I only changed it by, the net change with with these injectors is about 11 pounds an hour per injector. Probably still not enough. The duty cycle increased minimally. It's probably 1.7, 1.8 in park right now. Of course, when you put load on it, it goes up to about 2 or so, to 2.1 milliseconds. I'm talking in milliseconds. The injectors are rated for 1.5 milliseconds minimum open and close. So period, or what I would call period, or the pulse width, the on time of the injector. So, it's a 200 cubic inch engine. 2 100 pound per hour injectors is just a little too much for it. I think these are still a little bit large, but performance wise, zero difference. I showed you the learn graph already. You can see that the linearity of the injectors is very different. Deca claims that they're very linear, so it very well could be. Without flow testing, I won't know. That the Holley injectors, the linearity of the Holley injectors might not be very good. It's very interesting. It's pulling out a bunch of fuel at the lower RPM, lower map. So that's when the pulse width is shorter on the injectors. So when the injectors are on more, there's less of an error. So I'm assuming it's the Holley injectors that are the error, but who knows? It seems to run fine. I'm going to leave it like this. We're shooting up to Cars and Coffee tomorrow morning. That's a good 20 miles or so for me. So, we'll see how it runs, and I'll post in the community updates if there's anything worth noting. Probably won't shoot any more video. So anyways, that's the injector upgrade on what I would call a small cubic inch engine that's running a Holley 2300, or really it could be any of the sniper units. If you're running smaller cubic inches, you can change the injectors in these things. It's not set in stone that they have to be 100 pounds per hour, which is what they all come with. They either come with 2 or 4. I think even some of them come with 8 injectors. You can certainly upgrade them. Aaron Cox, he's got 250 in his car that's turbocharged. Of course, he's changing that out now, but Aaron's got 120 pound per hour injectors, and it's got 4 of them because it's a super sniper on a 2300. He's had to change it to get the fuel flow that he needed. So it's not set in stone. You can do some modifications to these. And if you've listened this long enough, I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret. So we're building another motor for this car. And I was really toying around. If you saw in the community tab, I picked up an aluminum vintage inlines head for this. Kind of a rare find. I paid out the ass for it, but they're so rare. I didn't know what I was going to do. It was a shoot then aim situation. I said I better snatch it because somebody's going to want it, and I want it within our community. And those heads are set up. They've got bosses cast into them for port injection. I called Holley today, had a conversation with one of their real senior guys, super knowledgeable, and we're going to go for port injection. Now, I was concerned about doing full sequential port injection with this because bank-to-bank and asequential or asynchronous firing of the injectors probably won't work too well with the way that the Terminator is designed, and the HP really. Those are the steps up from the sniper. Probably won't work great. I want to do full sequential, and I started thinking, well, you need a dual sync distributor. They don't make that for the 6. I said, well, I better, crank cam sensor. Oh my God, this is getting complicated. I better call Holley and ask them if I can do bank to bank on this, because the way they described it bank to bank on these systems is that it fires either every 90 or every 180 degrees. Well, this thing fires every 120 would be ideal. That's how inlines work. They're different than V8s. V8s fire every 90 degrees. Boy, it's getting windy out here. I'm pointing in videos. I know Shango hates that. Anyways, found out calling Holley. This is why you call the manufacturer. I call Holley and I said, I've got a Hyperspark on my sniper right now. And he goes, you don't need to do anything else. I said, really? He said it's not really well known. He said, but the Hyperspark the Hall effect sensor in it. One tooth in the Hall effect sensor is shorter than all the rest, and that's number one. He said it is set up to do full sequential. He said you don't have to do anything. He said you can leave the distributor that you got. You can use your CDI box and your sniper coil and everything. He said all you got to do is hook that up to the Terminator or HP. I think I'm going to go HP, which is another notch up from the Terminator system. All you got to do is set it for hyperspark sequential. There's a setting in the ignition settings, and boom, you've got full sequential on a hyperspark distributor. No crank, no cam sensor, no complications. It's a bolt up deal. So we're gonna go for it. I've got the head is going to Jeff right now. It's going up to Jeff Jones of Vintage Engine Works. Jeff is gonna flow it. He's gonna port it, flow it. He's gonna go through the seats. It's a brand new head, but he's gonna finish it out the way that it should be. So that's all upcoming. There's some real exciting stuff going on. I'm probably going to keep this motor for a while. I'll decide when I'm going to drop the new one in it. This thing runs great, but that's all good things for the future. I can't stop tinkering with these things, and I started thinking about, I don't know anybody that's got port injection on one of these motors, so I'm going for it. We're gonna do it. So anyways, we'll wrap this one up. Good stuff to come.